Welcome to Minister's Toolbox.
I'm here taking a walk with Gary DeRosa. We've been friends for
10
way
years.
too long.
Over 10 years now.
Over 10 years.
Yeah.
And just wanted to have him share for a moment how he came to Christ and just to encourage you today as a pastor. But let's see, you were born at a very early age.
This is how this is going to go already.
How it's going to go already.
Oh my God. Help us, Lord, on this trail. No, I was brought up, truthfully, I was raised in a Pentecostal church. My mom was crazy into the Lord, and she was loved Jesus. But at a young age, when my father, she was married to my father, and we were growing up, I was like 5 years old. My father left the house.
How many kids?
There was 10 of us.
Wow.
10 of us in our family. I was the baby. And my father was just a complete derelict and alcoholic. Really just went down the wrong path. Really just was brutal to my mom, physically, verbally, any way you could think of. And it was just heart-wrenching. And he left when I was 5 years old, her with 10 kids, all by herself. And she one day came home and he was just gone. We didn't hear from him for like 15 years. And my mom, at that moment in time, because she wouldn't allow him to go to church, she said to us, she said, listen, we're getting back to the real father, and I'm going to introduce you to your real father. You get emotional, think about it, because I remember those words. She said, I'm going to introduce you to your real father. We were like, what are you talking about? We know, Daddy. He left us. She said, no, your real father. And she brought us to church, and she led us all to the altar. Never forget it. I was like 8 years old. Led me to the altar and said, I want you to meet your father. And she made us say the sinner's prayer, and just said, this is who you go to. When mommy's not around, this is your new father. This is the one that helps you. This is the one that's going to steer you in the direction, and even when mommy's not around. And then she led us to the Word. She got us memory verse card that we'd open up, and she would test us every night, 2 or 3 scriptures, and do all this stuff. And she raised us like that until 15, 16 years old. My life was in a good place in Christ, I thought. I was going to youth meetings and youth group and just really on fire for the Lord. And I was trying to get my friends to come to church, and I just couldn't get them to come, man. They were out there, and I was trying to bring them in. They were my worldly friends, but I loved them so much and liked hanging out with them, their personalities. They were funny guys, It wasn't the drug issue at the time, but they weren't living, they weren't living right. They were doing stupid things, but a normal kid type stuff. But, of course, me, I had to take it to another level. So, I started bringing them in, and before you know it, they pulled me out. In 15 years, I just drastically went in that. I got married at 17 years old. I was having a baby. I had my son Gary when I just turned 18. I got married at 17. I had my mother permission to sign this off.
How do you end up robbing a bank?
Here's the thing.
Get up in the morning and say,
That's
what do I do today?
I can't believe you're saying that, Pastor Casey, because that's exactly what I said to my wife that morning. I said, you know what? I said, when you come home today, we don't have to worry about Christmas. It was November. I'll never forget it. And I said, we're going to have a great Christmas. If I have to rob a bank today, I'm going to rob a bank. You're going to come home today, and we're going to have all the money you're going to need. She didn't know in the backdrop of it, my friend of mine, whose wife worked in a bank, and told us when the bank drop was coming, and we did some investigations. He started getting crazy, watched the movies, and we started looking into that. I understood that at that time, when the armored car would pull up to unload the money, they had two people in it. One, the driver, and the guy would get out. Now they have 2 get out, but back then it was only 1. So the driver wasn't allowed to get out. Even if the guy was being shot, killed, stabbed, he couldn't get out of the truck. He was not allowed to get out of the truck. So that morning, he rolled up, and the guy got out, and I just had a hoodie on. I just ran by him. I just said, good morning. And he said, good morning. As he said, good morning, I just cold cocked him, and he went down. When he went down, he dropped both bags of money. I grabbed him and ran over a hill. Car was waiting, got in the car, clean getaway. At least we thought. So I opened up the money. It was $5,000. I gave him the $5,000. I get the rest of the money. I get home. First thing I do on the way home is I throw the bag out the window. I'm all nervous. And my wife's going to be home in like an hour. And I'm like, okay, man, I told her that there was going to be money here, but I think she's not going to believe me. So let me make sure she believes me. So I lay on the bed. I dumped $50,000 in cash all over me like a blanket. Sure enough, that point, I'm laying there for like 20 minutes. I'm not moving. I'm waiting for the door to open. Door opens up. It's my wife. She opens the door, and immediately she lets out a cry. It wasn't a good cry. It was a, oh my God cry. She starts weeping. And she got me nervous now because she was weeping. And then all of a sudden reality hit me like, oh my God, you just did something that's really not going to just so easily forgotten if you get caught, you know? Like the way she reacted, I'd seen the expression of, I'm in trouble. So, you know, at that time, I'm all high. I'm messed up. I'm doing drugs. My life's a disaster. I'm smoking crack. I'm shooting needles. Listen, I was a mess. I get emotional thinking about it. I was a mess. So with that being said, I tried cheering her up. I said, come on, I'll buy you a car. I go out and buy her a car. Right? She doesn't know I buried $30,000 in the backyard. She only thinks there's 20, but I know I got 30 stashed just for a rainy day. So I got 30 grand stacked in the backyard. So one night I'm sitting there, so we have boom, boom, boom on the door, boom, cops. Your husband here? No, he's not. Boom, boom, boom. We go through the whole deal. My wife says, I'm leaving. I'm getting in the car. She jumps in the car. She's going to get McDonald's for the kids. I say, don't leave me. I jump in the back of the car. She pulls out. Sure enough, they're waiting on the corner and they start following us. My wife runs a few red lights. Finally, the detective actually gets so close to the car that he takes his gun out and he hits it on the window of the car and says, pull over right now. Told my wife, pull over. I had the baby in the car. What a mess. Pull over. I'd stashed everything in the back seat of the car. I didn't have anything on me. They pulled me in. They said, no. So where were you? They start questioning me. I said, what are you talking about? You know, they knew what I did. They knew. And the reason being is the lady that worked at the bank, the husband I did it with, she told us everything. So when the cops did the investigation, they wanted everybody in the bank to take a lie detector test. She refused. The only one to refuse. They speculated it was her. They said, if you don't tell us who did it, we're going to lock you up and you're going to lose your kids. If you tell us who did it, we'll give you probation. Everything will be fine. So she confessed and she ratted me out. Not me knowing that. Sure, lo and behold, it knocks at the door. Before you know it, I'm upstate doing 6 years in the penitentiary. So when I got into prison, I didn't know what I was in for, like you're saying. And so they hand you everything in your hand, just like you see on TV, and you get to your cell and there's somebody in there. You're not in your own room where you lock your door and you're good, you can close out the world. No, you're in there with somebody and you're in a room that from your elbow to your hand is the width of the room. So my elbow would touch the wall and my hand would touch the other wall. And while I'm in there, they give you a calendar. So I don't know the calendar. You know, I look at the calendar and there's 6 boxes. So I'm thinking that's 6 boxes, 6 years, 6 years, right? So I don't realize in every box, in every one of those 6 boxes, there's 12 months. And in every one of those little boxes of 12 months, there's 30-something days. Okay. So I'm looking at this calendar. Got 6 boxes. I look over to him. I see 3 boxes crossed out. My head, I'm not thinking. I said, wow, you've only been here 3 months. You know, wow, you're only here. He goes, look again. And I look again and I recognize that he's been there for 3 years. And I don't realize. I turn back on my calendar and I take my pencil. I'm going to try. And I put a dot on one day. And I looked at the other 6 boxes and all the little squares and all those numbers. And I said, I'm never going to make it. I'm never going to make it. And that's the last thing I remember. I woke up in the infirmary in the hospital. They said I had a nervous breakdown. My mind shut down. My body shut down. The guy who was in the cell with screamed out for the guard to come in and help me. You got to come in here and get him. You got to come in again. And I soiled myself. My whole body shut down. I didn't know, but I was down for 2 months. I was in this place and in this infirmary. And listen, when I got out, because of that incident, every single person that was in that jail, when I would walk in the room with a clap and say, hey, Gary, because they knew I fought through, and that was more to them as a testament than anything else, that I fought through it. Because of that, because I went down and I got sick and all that happened, I believe God, through that incident, God protected me from other people seeing me in a different way.
But now you're in a prison environment. It's not like Sunday school. I mean, how do you deal with being in prison to start with? I mean, you got the whole dynamic of people who are going to beat you up or going to sexually abuse you or whatever it is. I mean, it's got to be a whole different dynamic.
I can't believe you're saying that. Listen, Casey, it was like being in a bubble. From the moment I walked into prison, God was surrounding me with his armor bearers, of whoever they were. I was a young kid. You saw it. I was in Elmira State Penitentiary. If you look at it and go on Google it, it was one of the top 3 rated penitentiaries in the world. at the time when I was in. So there were murderers in there, rapists were in there, people that weren't coming home. You know, I was a young kid just doing 6 years for robbing a bank. They stuck me in with people that were, and I was a population. I wasn't in protective custody, which is PC, where they put you on the side. I said to them, I want to be in population. I didn't want to be stuck locked down 24/7 and didn't want to be around anybody. So, you know, I said, please get me in with population. And the warden and the COs were saying, no, you need to go to protective custody. You're never going to make it out there. And I said, listen, I won't make it if I'm closed in. I need to be around people. I don't know what they're paying because I'm just me. I want to hang out with people, and lo and behold, that's exactly how I made it in there. Was the person that, well, I just hung out with everybody. It didn't matter who you are. People just liked me. And I'm not saying that, it was so easy going to prison. People, the CO would let me stay an hour extra, clear out the whole visiting room, let me and my wife stay there. An hour extra would bring sodas and potato chips for the kids. The favor that was upon me, even when I was in prison, was incredible. So while I'm in prison, they give me jobs. They have jobs that, being I wasn't a criminal like that, murdered or anything like that, I had more flexibility in movement. So I was able to cut hair, and I was the only barber in there cutting hair with scissors. So I was cutting 700 heads a month as a barber.
How did you become a barber as a kid?
You just tell them I can cut. That's all I said. They give you shears. You're not a murderer. They could trust you. You have no violent crime under your belt. Give this guy a scissor. He ain't sticking nobody in the neck. He's good to go. In the midst of all of this, my kids are growing up. I have the baby at that time. He was a baby when I went in, my son Anthony, and I'm in jail, and I hear they would come visit me, and he's 2 years old now, and the first words I ever heard him say out of his mouth was "open to." And the reason being is when you get visitors, kids would come up, and when they would open up, the CO would put them in a cage before they go into the room, and they would say "open to," and they would open the gates for the second people to come in.
So you do 6 years in prison.
Yeah.
Get out. Now your mother's coming to see you, I imagine, on a regular basis, or your family?
Yes. So 6 years in prison, my wife is coming to see me on a regular basis. But 6 years in prison, you don't meet the right people. So the day I get out, I meet a Castellano. I meet an Italian guy on the outside of the jail. Guy inside says, when you get out, give me a call. The day you get out, he give me a address because I'll be waiting outside. You look for a white Eldorado, and I'll be waiting for you when you get out. So I said to my wife, the prison gates open, TV style again, big gates, and the barbed wire all over. Your wife's on the dirt road. It's like out nowhere, and she's on the side of the road, and you get in her car, and all of a sudden you drive down the road a little bit, and there's a white Eldorado on the side of the road that you didn't really think was going to be there. Just somebody talking smack, And sure enough, I said, pull behind this car. She goes, well, who is this? Just don't worry, pull behind the car. I get out of the car, and lo and behold, the guy hands me a brown paper bag with $5,000 cash and a quarter-pound of cocaine.
What a buddy.
And he says to me, let me help you get started. And I said, what a dude. Just got to telling my wife, I'm never going to do this again. I've learned my lesson. But now I'm snatched to something worse than I was before. Not only the addiction, but now the addiction giver. The mafia himself, and I'll say the word, mafia himself. It was the Castellano family. Years have gone by. You looking for me? Come look. So anyway, me and my wife, I get in the car, and she says, what's in the bag? And I open it up to her, and she starts crying again. It was like the day you came open the bank. What'd you do? I said, listen, it's $5,000. We'll get everything. She don't know I got 30 grand stash, 6 years in the backyard. That money, don't believe me, it didn't rot away. I said, plus I got 30. She wanted to kill me when she found that out because she said, you didn't tell me the whole time I was starving. You didn't tell me there was money in the backyard. Wanted to make sure I was there when I got out. So anyway, I get out.
Husband.
What a husband. So bad, so bad. So I get the 30 grand, I get the money he gives me, and I got 35,000. I'm like living on the high hog. This is really good. 30 years ago, 35 years ago. Big money back then. And I got this cocaine stuff that I haven't done in 6 years, but man, it looks awful good to do a little bit more. So I did the whole quarter pound. I didn't sell any of it. In a matter of 4 months, I did all the drugs, spent all the money to buy more drugs, and was going back to jail for 3 to 7 and start all over again.
Why going back to jail? What happened?
Because I got caught, and I got probation, and I violated a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm going back to court again, and the judge who seen me the last time says, "God, what do you want to do?" Says, "You want to go back again?" What do you want to do? I didn't even have to finish the word program. I said, I'll do the program. First time he gave me the option, I took jail. This time I wasn't taking jail. I was taking the program. I experienced the jail thing. But not knowing that the program was going to be so much harder than jail. So much harder. Jail, you do whatever you want. You woke up, you eat, want to eat, don't want to eat. You don't have to eat, want to lay in bed all day, you lay in bed all day. You want to go to work at the barber shop, you don't get, you just lay there. You were just a vegetable inside a place that had a roof over your head, heat when you needed it, and cool when you were hot. So here I am, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to go to a program, I want to go to a team challenge, man. I want to go there, straight face. My mother told me I'm going to hear this junk again, and I'm getting like, I was actually angry with God a little bit because I feel like, because when I was a kid, people prophesied that I was going to be a pastor and a minister and touch lives and preach the gospel to the hurting. And I'm like, I'm hurting. Who's preaching to me? Who's going to be the guy to tell me what I'm supposed to be telling them? Like, wait a minute. The prophecy's backwards. I need a sinner to come save this cheap sinner. So anyway, I'm like dying, right? I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So I go in. First 2 weeks, I meet this guy, Barbara Scott. I wanted to kill him. I left. This guy was brutal. Told me I was going to die if I ever left the program. And I said, you just spoke death over my life. How do you do that as a minister? I took everything out of context that I knew of the scripture from when I was a kid and tried to manipulate it into feeling like he didn't know what he was talking about. Well, anyway, I ended up leaving. 2 months later, I came back and said, you're right, I'm going to die. Can you take me back?
I mean, if you leave a program, though, don't they track you as far as, the police or whatever?
Yes. Yeah, so I went back to probation, of course. I went back to probation and told him, listen, the program's not working out. I want to go to a different one. So I stalled that. But then I came back to probation. I threw a dirty urine, and he was going to put me right in. And he said, if you don't get back to Teen Challenge right now today, you're going away. And I said, okay. I ran back to Teen Challenge. And I said, well, you're right, I'm going to die. No, yeah, I'm going to go away. So he said to me, okay, come back. So he took me back, praise God. And listen, a week later, I'm in the chapel. And I got on my knees, and we had cubicles. And underneath the cubicle, I just got under there one night, and everybody was asleep. It was 12 o'clock at night. I walked out of my room, went to the chapel, got under the cubicle. And I remember saying these words. If you really, and I know you probably heard this, and people have probably heard this time and time again with people, if you really say you're the God who I was and who I felt, and I know you're real because I felt you. I just spoke in a tongue that I never knew I had at 13 years old. I know that I didn't do that. I know you came over me, and it was so supernatural the way I got that the spirit of tongues came on me. It wasn't trying to rehearse it. It was just like I threw up. I said, I know you're real. Why? Why? And I heard clear as day. I'll never forget what he told me that day, and I'll never forget it till today. And I say it all the time. Free will, my son. Free will. I didn't choose this for you. I chose what I've called you to be. You've chose this for you, but I'm here with you. And I began to weep underneath the cubicle, crying like a baby. There was a puddle under the cubicle for 12 months. Every time I would go to chapel, and I would put my chair in and put my feet, they would be on the puddle. And God said, now you're going to stand on the hurtings. You're going to stand on those tears, and you're going to become a warrior for me. And ever since then, those footprints of those tears have been what I walk in every day of my life. Everything that I was or couldn't be, I pray that God would help me to let somebody else be that, but they could be. And know that there's hope, and there is a future. People would tell me, you're never going to amount to nothing. Listen, we opened up 3 churches. We got people coming to church. We're saving souls, finances. I don't have to worry. If I want to buy a hamburger, I got to buy a hamburger. I'm not rich. I don't have anything. But what I do have, I have the peace of God. I see people's lives getting restored. Hope for people that never had hope like me. For me, every day I wake up and it's another miracle when I bring somebody to Jesus. So people say today, I don't see miracles. Well, I see one. I'm walking one. I'm a walking miracle. And I'm going to try to find others that can walk like me and become miracles too.
Hey everyone, did you enjoy this content? If so, Can you take a moment and give me a like or subscribe? I would certainly be in your debt. Thanks for joining me.